get started here with our Solar Alberta webinar. Just want to welcome everyone to this 2022 seminar series. We're very delighted to have so many people register for this special event. Almost 150 registrations now, so I'm sure people will be joining us over these next few minutes. Today's webinar is called Supporting Indigenous-Led Solar on the Prairies, a case study on strong partnerships. My name is Heather McKenzie, and I am the Executive Director at Solar Alberta. I'd like to take a minute to acknowledge that I am presenting to you today from Amiskwachee-Waskahegan, also known as Edmonton, Alberta, Canada, which is located on Treaty 6 territory and the homeland of the Métis Nation. Treaty 6 territory is the traditional gathering place and home of many Indigenous people, including the Papaches, Cree, Saulteaux, Dene, Blackfoot, and Nakota Sioux, nations whose ancestors have cared for and nurtured these lands since time immemorial. Please note that we will be recording this webinar for future distribution. Today, we'll be hearing from 3 informative speakers about a concrete example of an Indigenous-led solar project and the meaningful partnerships that were involved in the development of the project. Following the presentation, there will be a Q&A period in which you can all participate. The formal Q&A will run until about 1/4 the hour, and then we'll be inviting you to join us for an additional 15 minutes in a more relaxed Zoom Q&A format at the end. The link for the extended Q&A will be posted in the chat at the end of the formal Q&A, and I will draw your attention to it at that time. So please make sure just to click on that link before leaving the webinar. The entire session will wrap up in an 1.5 hours. In an effort to increase accessibility to the content we're offering, we have enabled closed captioning for this presentation. You can turn the captioning on in the toolbar at the bottom of your Zoom screen. During our formal Q&A period, we will be using Zoom Q&A for the questions rather than the chat box. So please enter your questions in the Q&A section. Also, please click on the little thumbs up symbol to upvote questions that you like. Before we move forward, we're going to do a quick poll to get a sense for who all we have joining us today. So please take a minute to answer the question popping up on your screen now. Great, I see some answers coming in. Thank you. And while some are still filling out the poll, I'd like to encourage you to also take a minute and pop your name, land acknowledgement, and any contact info that you're comfortable sharing in the chat now and throughout the event, so that others can look you up on LinkedIn or some other platform and some relationships can begin to be formed. All right, Mackenzie, I think if you're up for sharing the poll results with everyone, that would be great. So it looks like we have a really healthy mix of folks here. A good solid contingent of industry professionals, lots of solar curious folks, and some students as well. So appreciate you all joining us today, and thanks for that helpful information. It's always good to know a little bit about who we're chatting with. All right, and now a little bit about Solar Alberta. Did you know that this is Solar Alberta's 31st year of operation? We are a not-for-profit society that is dedicated to public education about renewable energy, energy efficiency, and all that good stuff. We also serve as a hub for the solar industry in Alberta. Our membership is made up of over 350 individuals and businesses. And you can see our brand new vision and mission statement there on the screen. So we are really happy to announce that our new mission statement is to accelerate Alberta's transition to a just and sustainable energy future. To do so, we advocate, educate, and serve as such an industry and community hub for solar energy, as mentioned before. So we provide a number of services, including managing a solar directory through our website. And this way we act as a bridge for installers and suppliers to connect with their customers and clients. You can see a screenshot of the directory here on this slide. In addition to our website services, we run a number of educational programs, such as the Solar Seminar Series that you're participating in, on a number of Thursdays over the lunch hour. We have new Solar 101 workshops in languages other than English. So we have Mandarin, we have Hindi, and upcoming is Spanish. And we have our annual solar show. We're really proud to share that in 2022, our solar show reached over 600 people. Recordings of both the 2021 and 2022 solar show sessions can be found on our website, solaralberta.ca, or at our YouTube channel. We have two exciting webinars coming up after this one on May 19th, where we're going to hear from the City of Edmonton about how to make solar and home retrofit projects more affordable. This is going to include an overview of the new Clean Energy Improvement Program you might have heard of. The city's piloting it, and many other cities across Alberta are now launching this program. In the US, it would be called PACE programming. So you might be curious about that here in Canada. And on June 2nd, over the lunch hour, we're going to hear from Dr. Sarah Hastings-Simon and Graham Harris about solar offsets for homes and businesses. Stay tuned on our social media and our newsletter to learn more about all of these events and more. This spring, we're once again running a number of online courses for solar industry professionals or those transitioning into the sector. Our courses are online Tuesday and Thursday evenings on 3 to 5 nights over 2 to 3 weeks. You can register for our May and June courses at the link provided in the chat. And you can also access pre-recorded courses now and workshop content on our website if we're not offering a course at this time that you're interested in. So that's a brand new service, pay per download. Check it out. If you're not already, I'd like to encourage you to join Solar Alberta as a member. We are constantly evolving our service offerings, some of which you can see listed on the screen here. Individual membership is just $35 and can be purchased at solaralberta.ca. If you're looking for additional ways to support our work, please consider volunteering or donating. Volunteer opportunities consist of helping with communications, public education, advocacy, and more. Volunteers are eligible for free membership with Solar Alberta after committing 15 hours or more and are eligible for $100 off of a course each year. I love all the introductions coming in the chat. Keep them going. Thanks very much for introducing yourselves to each other. And I'd be remiss if I didn't also mention that this past year, Solar Alberta did win an Emerald Award in the community group or nonprofit category. As part of our Emerald Award, the foundation kindly made a short documentary about Solar Alberta. So after this session, you can feel free to check it out in the link we're going to share in the chat. We're really proud and thankful to have been recognized in this manner for the second time in our history. And a big shout out to Onyx, the sponsor for today's seminar. You're going to hear more from them soon, but we're really happy to have Onyx as a sponsor today. Always interested in developing more partnerships for our events. So if you or your company want to work with us on educating the public about the many facets of solar energy, please don't hesitate to reach out. And now to introduce our speakers. First up, we have Linda Bigknife. Linda is a member of Star Blanket Cree Nation in Saskatchewan, Treaty 4 territory. In 2010, Star Blanket Cree Nation created their Economic Development Corporation, Red Dog Holdings. Linda stepped into the CEO role and has led the wealth creation entity for more than 12 years. She has extensive experience in accounting and management from various positions held across Alberta and Saskatchewan, and was a representative of her band for 6 years as a band counselor. She holds a professional director's designation and is on the board of directors for Atim Ka-Mikosit and Onyx Management and Solar LP, and I'm sure she's going to come on and correct my pronunciation. I hope she does. I did practice before, but obviously needed to practice even more. So thank you. 2 companies that were actually created under her direction. In 2012, Red Dog Holdings identified renewable energy as one of their strategic industry sector focuses. Red Dog Holdings and Star Blanket Cree Nation developed the Indigenous Climate Monitoring Project and Climate Adapt Project. First Nation Power Authority supported them in the development of a 3-party partnership for the delivery of a 10-megawatt solar project. This provided valuable introductory experience in the renewable energy sector. Linda looks forward to what the future holds in the sector. She is a visionary leader and is committed to Indigenous community and economic development, seeking feasible business opportunities and creating own source revenue for her nation. She resides on her home reserve land, White Calf Reserve, Star Blanket Cree Nation, and family is of the utmost importance to her. Next, after Linda speaks, we're going to hear from Harley Upton. And Harley is a project manager and business development employee of Atim Ka-Mikosit and ONEC LP, an Indigenous engineering and construction company based in Fort Qu'Appelle, Saskatchewan, and an entity of Star Blanket Cree Nation. Harley is US military veteran and served 6 years in the United States Marines as an infantryman and military police. Following his military career, Harley spent 10 years performing counseling and life skills coaching to Native American youth as a family teacher at Boys Town in Nebraska. Harley is also a certified federal law enforcement officer through US Homeland Security and worked with the Federal Law Enforcement Training Center in Artesia, New Mexico, where he was the platoon leader. He also served as a police officer with the San Carlos Apache Police for 2 years on federal Native American land in Arizona. Harley has been with Atim ONEC for nearly 5 years and operates within many roles, including business development, liaison, workforce development, and operations. He was a foreman on a solar installation project and a project manager on another solar project in Weyburn, Saskatchewan. His passion and goal is to continue creating capacity within Star Blanket Cree Nation and the surrounding First Nations communities in Saskatchewan is great. Last but not least, we have Keegan Lang speaking today. Keegan entered the workforce promptly after college, beginning his career as a tradesman in Alberta's energy sector. As his career took shape, he advanced into the various leadership roles, including construction management, site supervision, and project management. In 2005, he started his own business and developed a deep understanding of cash flow, growth strategies, and the construct of a dependable, quality-driven team. Over the next few years, Keegan was involved in 2 other additional startup ventures and acquisitions, furthering his knowledge and exposure to market and labor functions and the relationship between. Keegan is most passionate about sustainable growth in all forms, the environment, economic, and the social development of minority and remote communities. As a solutions-focused individual, he strives to enact meaningful change and make integral impacts to ensure a mutually beneficial and prosperous future. It was obvious to Keegan that renewable power generation solves these issues almost seamlessly. By providing clean energy, communities are not only provided with clean power, but this enables economic growth and personal sustainability for years to come. For the past year, this has been Keegan's focus to develop communities and brighten the future for so many. And now, without further ado, I will turn the mic over to Linda to begin her presentation. Thank you, Linda. And Keegan, you will take over the screen and start presenting on behalf of all 3 of you, I believe. There we go. I see your presentation. I see Linda. So I'm going to turn off my mic and stop my video and we'll listen to Linda. Linda, feel free to turn on your mic now.
Hello, can you hear me? Hello.
Hi, we can hear you. You sound great.
Okay, thank you. So first of all, I would just like to say thank you to our creator for giving us this day and the opportunity to share with you all. I would also like to acknowledge that I am speaking to you from Treaty 4 land and my homeland and the homeland of the Métis Nation. I will be telling you a little bit about our First Nation and our partners in solar and what we look for in a partnership. Star Blanket Cree Nation is in southeast Saskatchewan, east of Regina off the number 10 highway. We are located in Treaty 4 territory, a member of the File Hills Qu'Appelle Tribal Council, and one of 5 nations in the File Hills Agency. The closest town to our main reserve is Belcarra, Saskatchewan. Star Blanket was one of the first First Nations to sign a TLE agreement and probably one of the smallest settlements. Our population is approximately 720 members, with about half living on reserve. Next slide. Star Blanket acquired various land locations. My home is located on reserve, namely White Calf Reserve, formerly a part of Alberta, Saskatchewan, and the location of the last Indian residential school that was closed in 1998. Part of the building still stands, and we make use of it as a multi-purpose facility. You may have come across a more well-known landmark, the First Nations University of Canada. This institution is situated on Star Blanket land. The reserve is called Red Dog, actually, right in the same campus as the University of Regina. In 2010, Star Blanket leadership developed the Economic Development Corporation, Red Dog Holdings. Red Dog signed a business charter with Star Blanket Chief and Council, created a board, and legally separated entity. We have grown for 12 years and have diverse interests, renewable energy being one of our priorities of interest. So these are some of the things that we look for when we're forming a new partnership. Right now we have 2 limited partnerships. We have a number of MOUs with other companies that we are looking forward to working with when that opportunity comes. So what makes a strong, meaningful partnership? It is long-term commitment in mutually beneficial business interests, familiarity with our nation's social and community development aspirations, honesty and fairness, an equitable voice in all decision-making, a true commitment to reconciliation, to UNDRIP, and to sustainable development goals adopted by the United Nations in 2015. We look for stability and a strong balance sheet. We look for the willingness to take cross-cultural training and overall trust and respect. Although we are aware of the speed of business, what we don't want in a partnership is companies who partner for their own benefit, to access opportunities and grant funding. We fielded many door knocks that were not genuine. We want partners genuinely interested in advancing Indigenous economic development in a meaningful way. Not taking the time to develop a relationship. Trust and respect take a bit longer, but is vital to build mutual understanding to develop a long-term beneficial relationship. Not acknowledging or respecting the customs, culture, and or traditions of our First Nation. It is what we incorporate naturally when building a mutual, respectful, meaningful business relationship. Just noting and being aware that some people will have to be educated or educate themselves in our ways. Next slide. So just a little bit about Atim Ka-Mikosit Onyx. In 2015, we began our relationship with Onyx Group based in Edmonton. Over the next 2 years, we built a relationship based on trust, respect, common values, and community involvement. We welcomed them into our community for several visits, which included community information sessions. They also attended our annual Christmas event and have sponsored that for the last, I think it was about 4 years. We both were transparent and learned about each other. We were patient, involved, and invested in the relationship before we signed any legal documents. It was a time that we took that really made us strong together. In 2017, we signed a limited partnership agreement between Red Dog and Onyx, with Red Dog owning 51% of the company, and equal membership on the board of directors. That gave us our equitable voice. We continually work together to build an understanding of each other's aspirations and concerns, and through the process, we identify strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and challenges to create mutual beneficial synergies and ambitions. The partnership with Pasakastay Solar. This partnership is between Red Dog Holdings, George Gordon Developments, and Natural Forces. The First Nations own 51% of the partnership. Pasakastay Solar was awarded a 10 megawatt solar project in partnership with First Nations Power Authority and Sask Power. Our 20-year PPA agreement will provide revenue for the next 20 years for all three partners. Building trust, respecting the goals and values of each partner made this partnership work. It was not always easy. It takes commitment, determination, and mutual respect to work through the rough spots. If you choose your team carefully, foster the development of the partnership, it will have the best chance to succeed. So that is a little bit about sort of the administration or Red Dog side of it. And so for the actual project details, I will turn it over to Harley. Thank you.
Hi, Harley. If you could just unmute, I think we're missing your audio there.
Sorry about that. I pushed the video button there, so sorry about that. Yeah, well, thank you, Linda, for that. I really appreciate that. Also, I would like to acknowledge I am in Treaty 4 territory here in Fort Capel, Saskatchewan. I'm actually a community member here in Star Blanket Cree Nation. Although I am a Native American and enrolled member of the St. Carlos Apache tribe in Arizona, I have resided in Saskatchewan for the past 5 years as a permanent resident on Star Blanket Cree Reserve. I am married to a Star Blanket member, and I also have a daughter. It's also a member of the Star Blanket Cree Nation. I'm here today not only to represent the company I work for, but also represent our First Nations people in the solar industry here in Canada and the US. Just with the project that we did work on there in Weyburn, Saskatchewan, Pasakastay Solar. What we kind of accomplished there, Keegan, if you can turn that to slide 8. Yeah, thanks. So for engineering services, we work closely with stakeholders, and through our partnership provided the electrical engineering support services for the project. So with that, what that entailed was, like I said, we worked closely with our engineers there at Onyx Group, and they kind of guided us through that as well, and put us on the right path just with the electrical scope piece there to Pasakastay Solar. As for the racking installation, we installed the ATI single axis tracking racking system on this project. That consisted of deploying over 40 workers that were made up of over 90% First Nations from Star Blanket Cree Nation and the surrounding areas. Also, a couple of First Nations I just wanted to mention that was George Gordon First Nation, Oshaman First Nation, Carrie to Kettle First Nations, and Papixi's First Nation. And I think I have one from far up north as well, as Pelican Narrows as well. So we did have a diverse group there on site that we work with day to day. Which we did through the remainder of the project, which was a plus.
All right. Hi there. Sorry, I think Harley's internet connection must have just dropped out for a minute. So I think what we might want to do is Keegan, if you're available, maybe what we could do is go through your section of the presentation, and then Harley could
Yeah.
reverse and cover his when he's back. Oh,
Hello? Yep,
oh,
I'm
you're
here.
back. You're
Yeah, I
back,
don't know.
Harley.
I don't know what that was. Maybe I was talking a little fast.
Just a little hiccup. Okay, you froze
Yeah.
on us. But yeah, if you don't mind going back to
Module installation, yeah.
that'd be great. I appreciate it. Thanks so much.
So with module installation, we deployed our crews in receiving and staging the modules as they arrive on site. Obviously, you know, a lot of the companies out there, you know, when we do land big boxes of modules on site, I wish they could find a way to kind of secure a box when you do open it, because it does tend to kind of come out. So we did end up improvising and building our own kind of little staging area to take out the modules out of the boxes, right? So that was kind of something we had to think about really quick, because it does get pretty windy down there in Weyburn, Saskatchewan, right? So we efficiently installed all the modules for the site. This involves supplying qualified electricians for the project to conduct and oversee these scopes. So after, you know, a couple months, all our employees or workers, we installed over 32,000 panels on site, which, like I said, was pretty tough at times, right? Just because the elements do beat down on you out there. Obviously, you got cold weather out there. Also, when the wind gusts are over 30 kilometers, it's pretty tough to try to get something out there, right? So other than that, we kind of finished the project strongly. So, you know, that was a big plus for our company, as well as our First Nations people who worked here on site. Next slide. So labor source, this was a big one. So any companies out there looking at securing a labor source out there, which entails, you know, either being First Nations or, you know, or other diverse groups, you know, this is a big one, right? So my focus here here on Pasakastay Solar was the big thing that I've been taught, and, you know, in my recent years of experience just working in groups and working in teams and squads like that, is keeping that morale on site. And I'm sure at each construction site, the morale goes up and down, right? And one of the biggest things that I did on my behalf was pull each worker to the side, check up on them, make sure they're doing okay, make sure they're comfortable, make sure everything was going well at home. If they needed a day off, I would give them a day off if they need it, obviously. If there was anything culturally, something that they had to do culturally at home, if there was a death in the family, if there's a ceremony, I made sure they had some time off for that, right? And just want to make sure that, you know, we're showing that awareness going forward, right, on these projects. So with that said, kind of our labor source, we had a core team of workers that have worked on other projects with us for the past several years. In addition to our core team, we started training well in advance for the project. This enabled us to ensure that we provided our community with the best chance of success on the project and ability to maintain a high percentage of community involvement. Atim created a workforce within Star Blanket Cree Nation, as well as the neighboring First Nations in the area. Our First Nations workforce had prior work experience in other solar projects. Also, workers had solar training certificates from SAS Polytech that was coordinated on behalf of Atim and Red Dog Holdings. Atim goal overall was to maintain 90% First Nations workforce on the Pasakastay solar site, which we did for the remainder of the project. Going forward, we look to maintain our workforce for other projects, as well as subbing out our labor workforce for other solar projects, you know, within Canada, within Saskatchewan, you know, Western Canada, right? So I know right now I do have a couple of companies calling to see if I can get some of our train employees out to site right now, right, to their projects. So Atim employed experienced intermediate and junior solar installers. Criteria is based on training, experience, and qualifications. Atim worked with local Indigenous employment agencies that help with getting our workers get their safety construction tickets and other tickets that would have been required to work on site. So So with our safety program, we integrated Onyx core values and programs to ensure we kept our workforce safe and that we were meeting our exceeded project expectations. This helped us grow our team workability and help further value our workers in day-to-day management of sophisticated safety program at work and in their home lives. Atim ensured the safety of the workers along with holding each worker accountable for their own safety as well. We work each day to keep a positive morale through the project, even on the days the weather was not agreeing with us. We made sure that our workers were comfortable on site and off site. The key to successful workforce is to build the relationship, give respect, build trust, and to have a great sense of cultural sensitive awareness. As for quality control, through a vigorous quality program, we maintain a high level of production outputs and assured our clients and a project that the material is being installed to manufacturer standards and a project was in compliance with the local regulation. Atim created an exceptional quality control team on site, which included 8 qualified workers to ensure the solar installation was put together to spec and ready for turnover. So like I said, through the months of just battling the weather, like that was kind of a tough task in itself, but just having that quality control team out there, just helping us out, you know, as we installed the racking system as well as the panel system, we had our team come behind us and make sure we put that together right. And I think the biggest thing is making sure that you torque all those nuts and bolts down right, because that wind will pick up and it will take off some panels if you don't have that stuff torqued down right. So I'm very proud of our team, our First Nations team, as well as the other workers on site that helped us with this project. But I think going forward, we have a strong core team. Thank you. Keegan?
How's it going today? So I just wanted to recognize that I'm on Treaty 7. I'm in Red Deer, Alberta, south of the river on Treaty 7 land, which is falls under Treaty 6 territory. So just to kind of get going a little bit on this, to talk about the partnership and the impacts we had on the local communities. It was a pleasure to be a part of this project. It was quite inspiring and definitely changed the way I look at things and develops in the same value streams that I have. So the impact we had by working in the partnership with Atim Ka-Mikosit, the benefits we had to the employment opportunities we provided to the nation, the social development and economic development firsthand, right out the gate. We had, by employing the workers, they were able to take paychecks home to their families. That was an incredible opportunity, and it was good. Educational opportunities by training the workers, adding to their safety cultures, and further developing. It was a great opportunity to do that. Sustainability, Star Blanket is owner, like a lot of the people working on our sites actually had ownership in the project. So that added a lot of value. It was great. Gonna move over to the next slide. Sorry here, guys. Just kind of working with where we're going to grow and how Onyx sees to move forward in the future. Obviously developing those skill sets that we have: engineering, construction, project management, working in the renewables markets and solar and wind and agriculture, food generation and greenhouses, sustainable produce, looking at those community levels and how those integrate into the community. It was definitely a big, like these items and being a big part of where my value streams and Onyx value streams fit with the First Nations, and how we can develop that further. It was definitely an honor to be a part of this team working with Linda and Harley on these projects. The partnership was truly aligns with my own personal values, and it was a friendship that was developed there. The opportunity we had to grow personally and you know, in a business function as well. It really shows how what can be accomplished through these type of partnerships and the growth that can come from that. Taking a true understanding of the culture of Star Blanket and the Cree has been a great opportunity as well. I look to learn more. I've learned a lot from them, definitely over the past few years, and what that looks like and how that integrates into business and the business value streams that come from that. The relationships that we have built are amazing. We're looking to build more of those relationships with other First Nations groups, and just kind of really grow this, not only in the business markets that we work in, but also the regions that we work in, expanding into Western Canada, and maybe even Manitoba as well. So those are some of the regions and geographically growth that we're looking at. I truly feel excited about our future and what that brings. I think there's a lot of economic growth coming in the renewables world to this region, as well as having that ability to bring some reconciliation to the First Nations through sustainable resources. And that's pretty much what we have there. If you need to contact us, you can reach me, Linda, or Harley, and this is our information stream. That's about all I have today, Heather. So I think that wraps it up for us. But it was great to be able to present to you guys today, and we look forward to any questions or anything anybody has. So
Wonderful. Well, thanks so much, Keegan and Linda and Harley. If you don't mind turning your cameras back on, I think we can stop the screen share now and just have the four of us up on the screen for the Q&A portion. All right. You mind taking your screen share down there, Keegan? I think it's going to require you do that this time. Perfect. Thank you. Well, thanks so much for the presentations. I've got 2 questions in the box, but I've got about 6 myself. So don't worry, we're not going to run short on questions because your presentations did spark a lot of thoughts for me as well as our audience. Just want to encourage our attendees to add more questions to the Q&A, not in the chat box, but the Q&A box. So first up, we've got a question from Leland. Leland's wondering how you found the tracking system in terms of reliability from weather perspective and whatnot. You mentioned the harsh weather during the install, Harley. How's it going for the tracking system now, I think is sort of what we're wondering about.
Right now, like I said, I did go on site here about three weeks ago, right? And everything's holding up pretty good. Like I said, we do get that Saskatchewan wind coming in pretty tough from the west, right? And like I said, our quality control team made sure that everything was torqued to spec, right? So all the panels are holding up. The actual tracking system's doing well right now, right? So
great.
Yeah.
Good to hear. And there's a question from Dennis wondering if you folks do maintenance on solar sites as well, or primarily installation.
Yes, we do maintenance upkeep on site, like O&M contract. We did secure a contract with Saskatchewan State, right? So we do have that for the next 3 years and possibly another 2 years after that, right? So we'll be going into our maintenance contract here within probably the next month or 2, right? So
yeah, that sounds like there might be some folks on the line who've got installations where the original installer might not be in business anymore. They're looking for who's going to maintain for them. I know that sometimes happens with folks just trying to get started and then they don't end up being as successful as you all. So, so
right.
that's good to hear that you've got that ability. All right, Leland is wondering how long this solar system has been installed for. I'm trying to remember the timeline you said. If you could repeat that, that'd be great.
So the project, I can kind of cover that, Heather. So we just completed the project about a month ago. It's still in the process of being finally completed, but as far as the racking and module installation was about a month ago. Yeah.
Okay, but so it's completed a month ago, and I guess how long did it take in total for the install?
Harley, I think what was that, about 4 months, I would say, with the crews.
Yeah, yes, roughly. Yes.
That's pretty quick. But I do suspect the development period of planning and everything must have been significantly longer.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, and included in that
installation.
That's right.
Uh-oh, sounds like I might be frozen now. Am I frozen for y'all?
Yeah, it looks like you might have froze, Heather. Yeah.
Hi. Okay, I'm back. Can you hear me all right? Sorry, looks like Harley and I are having Wi-Fi issues today. So glad to be back with you all. I had a question for you about the land that was selected. I'm wondering in particular, how you determine which land to use. Did you end up pairing any food production with that solar production? There's a lot of questions when people are talking about solar farms about which land is the right land, and how do you make those sorts of decisions? Anyone want to take a stab at that
I
one?
think that one would fall onto you, Linda. Yeah.
Okay, so our partner Natural Forces in the beginning of the project, when we were developing it, we had looked at sites from both our First Nations, and they had some land already secured in the Weyburn area. So just looking at the solar radiation for each of those areas, the one in Weyburn was the best suited. And the other thing was that it was right across the road from a substation. So those were kind of the reasons that we chose that land. And basically we'd like to expand that site to maybe another 20 megawatts. I'm not sure what the rest of the question was. So that was kind of how we decided to chose that site.
So based on its solar potential and the proximity to the substation, that makes a lot of sense. And I think sometimes when nations up north are looking at land, it's a bit of a more difficult question because so forested that it also requires a lot of deforestation. So sometimes it can be a tricky balance to figure out what to prioritize. So it doesn't sound like it was too controversial for you folks, which is nice. I've got a question here. This one is about partnerships. And can you talk more about how you go about finding and partnering with companies who have a true desire for reconciliation? How do you develop that trust and partnership? And I guess, Linda, you mentioned that you had to turn away a number of companies. And that, for me, I was wondering, what are your red flags as well? Where do you say, oh, this isn't going to be a good partnership, and kind of decide to keep looking? So that was a good food for thought you gave us, and I think people are curious to hear more.
So for the Atim Ka-Mikosit Onyx partnership, basically it was who you know or who knows you. There is a gentleman in Fort Capel whose nephew was one of the partners in Onyx, but has since left. And so just by knowing and working closely with different business people, that was how that partnership was developed. Because, like he told me, he said, I know a company that's wanting an First Nations or Indigenous partner. So basically that was really by chance that relationship was formed, but it turned out to be really good. And it took a long time for us to develop that partnership, maybe longer than some others. So that was one way. And sometimes it's like who you know and who you're networking is basically, what how you can create some of those partnerships. With Pasakase Solar, it was basically First Nations Power Authority that kind of put the group together. So basically Natural Forces, showed an interest in partnering with First Nations by becoming a member of the First Nations Power Authority. And George Gordon and Star Blanket were interested in forming a partnership to bid on the 10 megawatt project. So that's how that partnership started.
Yeah, well, thank you for expanding on that. And I see a question here that sort of feeds off of that one, which is when you did bid on the project, you mentioned that there was a power purchase agreement that came into effect. And I think people are curious, are you selling all of the revenue or generating all of the revenue through the power purchase agreement sale, or are you using any of the power locally? Basically, how is the electricity that is being generated being used? Is it local, or is it going on the grid for sale?
It is all going on the grid.
Okay. And so
we're also looking at doing some community solar and developing that on our First Nation as well, that we will use. So, but that project is all through SaskPower.
Yeah. No, it's a very good question, because I think when it comes to revenue generation, it can essentially do the same thing. You can still use it to pay your power. But I think a lot of folks in Alberta are accustomed to, the micro generating system here, where you basically produce what you consume, and you're offsetting your own personal consumption first. When you get into the solar farms, though, that's a totally different picture. So I appreciate you clarifying that, and it's interesting to hear that you're working on community generation as well. Keegan, and I think the others would be open to answering this as well, perhaps. I'm not sure, but I know when we were preparing for this, I anticipated there'd be some folks on the line who are curious if this whole relationship and this project would look different in Alberta. Is there anything that would be considerably different here if you're working with a nation in Alberta, or is it pretty similar from nation to nation across Western Canada in terms of the logistics and how you manage things? I know the regulations probably play into all this a little bit, and so if you could expand on that.
Yeah, that's not a problem, Heather. From that perspective, I think there isn't a difference in a relationship. So culturally, and what First Nations people are looking for is fundamentally, it comes from a genuine heart. You have to have a genuine approach and a genuine take towards what we're doing. And as long as you're focused in on reconciliation and the different items and economic growth, social development, as long as we're focused on that, that applies to both sides of Saskatchewan and Alberta. It's not interprovincial. As far as the actual work goes, and regulation and code, the deployment of workers, it's about that training program and getting those guys qualified. The qualifications are very similar across the board. It's not much different. There's a few variations on like maybe module, grounding, etc., but no major catalysts. So.
And then in Saskatchewan, obviously SaskPower is intimately involved in pretty much everything. But right. Since we don't have an equivalent here in Alberta, I imagine you would just go ahead and do this sort of project without the involvement of a Crown Corp?
That's correct. Yeah, it would be done under the electrical code, right? So here in Alberta, we have an electrical code that we still have to adhere to. SaskPower just controls that code in Saskatchewan. So.
Okay, yeah. And SaskPower, I understand, has to kind of approve all the projects and whatnot. Is that not the case there?
That's true.
Whereas in Alberta, it's all a private sector, so you don't have to get. You still have to get approval through ASO and all that jazz, but you don't have to have the province sign off before you even get going, right?
Yeah, that's right. I guess that's at a provincial level, it's different that way. Yeah. There's, I guess, a lot more diversity to the players in Alberta versus Saskatchewan. So Saskatchewan is very obviously regulated by SaskPower. So.
Yeah, there's a lot more private sector involvement here. And I know the PPAs here are definitely constructed differently, it seems, as well. Although, the Alberta government did themselves establish some power purchase agreements to kickstart that also. So I'm sure there are a few comparable pieces.
That's right.
So that's great. I think Leland has another question here about the land. So what was the land previously used for before it was converted into a solar farm?
It was farmland.
Okay, so it was farmland. And yeah, and so is there any co-generate, like I know there are some farms here, solar farms, where they've got the sheep and the solar going together. Is there anything like that there, or did they have to relocate the livestock?
It was actually a crop. That it wasn't livestock or grazing.
Oh,
It was a field.
Yeah.
it was a field, yeah.
Yeah, it's
Okay.
ceded land, and it's also in a utility corridor as well.
Oh,
that
okay.
Kind of is right parallel to it. Yeah.
Okay, interesting. Yeah, so many questions these days about land use and what to prioritize, this, that, or the other thing. It's a real quandary. So, so that's good to know. Carter says here, oh, City of Medicine Hat is the one exception in Alberta. I think we'll have to get into that maybe more in the Zoom meeting room, because it's not really possible during a webinar to figure out what that's referring to. And Tonya has a very specific question for you. What tools do you use to manage all the work orders, scheduled and unscheduled? So I think that's probably for you, Harley, I imagine. How are you managing all the work orders?
Oh, you just muted
Oh,
yourself.
you're muted. Sorry, I'll just ask you to unmute. There we go.
Keegan?
Yeah, go ahead. You want me to answer that, Harley?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, no, so through our systems, we have obviously a CRM that we work through with Onyx and Atim Ka-Mikosit as well. And then we just manage it through that way. So it would be done on a itemized work order basis, just kind of a rolling spreadsheet, right? So there's intervals that'll be done, obviously, for the O&M portions of the site that we'll just kind of continue to go over with.
Yeah, so you've got some good software there. That's great. And I guess I had one more question before we go to the Zoom meeting room, which was challenges you faced. Like, what were some of the biggest obstacles you had to overcome as you got going on this partnership, but also on the project front? You know, I would say, what are the things that were on your mind the most as you overcame many hurdles?
I think from my perspective, I'll let maybe we each have a point to speak on this part, but from a project related place, I think procurement, just in the year that we built this, obviously over COVID-19, procurement was a major issue and there were some delays in there, and just trying to be able to manage that through our manpower and pull that together was definitely, from my perspective, one of the challenges. Harley, Linda, what about from your guys' thoughts?
As for being someone out there on site with our workforce, I think our biggest challenge was just the weather itself, right? Just the elements. Obviously, you want to be able to get a project done during the summer, early spring, and at least have it done, you know, by November, right? But obviously, when you go November, December, January, it's a little tough to battle those elements out there, right? So I think another challenge would just be communication, just with the actual manufacturer there, you know, of the actual tracking system. Just making sure that we have the correct specs and we're, you know, doing everything to that, right? So, but other than that, like I said, we overcame those, and like I said, we had a great, stellar team out there that performed really well with this. So, yeah.
Thanks. How about for you, Linda? What were some of the big challenges from your perspective?
I think during the developmental stages, it was just the length of time that it took to sign the PPA agreement. So that was one of the longest, I think, issues that we dealt with.
Yeah, I've heard in Alberta that can take 1 to 2 years sometimes just to finalize all those details on paper. Was that your experience as well?
Yes, it was.
A little different than a small scale installation where you have an idea one day and you're done it in a few months' time, right? Yeah, just even working out all the relationship and power purchase pieces. Yeah, that's good to know. And I understand that can also be fairly costly too, jumping through all those initial hoops for a large project. I've heard can be $1 to $3 million just to get through all the studies and whatnot alone.
Yes.
So yeah,
it was in that range.
Yeah, interesting. One other question here from Andrea. Oh, hi, Andrea. I know you. It's always fun when you see a name pop up that you actually know quite well. Could you talk about community engagement efforts for this project and the opportunities for Star Blanket community members to have their say and be involved in project design and decision making? I know we had this question come up at another seminar we hosted and heard about the importance of consulting with elders as well as youth. And just curious what that looked like in this situation.
So with both partnerships, Atim and Pisakasdu, there was a number of community engagements where members were invited to voice their concerns or opinions. We basically had very good support in both partnerships, and I guess because renewable energy was something that was identified through our community plan back in 2007. It took a long time to develop that, but our membership realized early on that climate change was going to have an impact on us. So they were very interested in solar renewable energy, and they were also very interested in food sustainability. So those things came directly from our community as things that they wanted us to get involved with. So yeah, we had throughout the different stages of development, we had a number of open houses where the community could come and just see the progress that we were making during that time. We also did that with the city of Weyburn and some of the surrounding areas with natural forces, just so that people could come and learn about what the project was going to be about.
Okay, great to hear about. And I did have one other question, which was, why solar? Why not wind or one of the other, I guess you could call them semi-renewable resources. I know in Saskatchewan, a lot of people are talking about nuclear these days and whatnot. So I know that's not as popular in Alberta, but very common to hear about nuclear in Saskatchewan. And so I guess I'm just curious how you folks opted for solar. What was the decision-making process like for that?
I think it was just the opportunity that we had. It was a set aside through FNPA for the solar. We're also interested in wind, and so it might happen in the future, but that was one of the main reasons we choose solar.
Mm-hmm. And is there any hydro, waterway potential there, or is that? I know in northern Alberta, there's been a lot of historical trauma associated with hydro, and so nobody really wants to explore that possibility. What's it like in Saskatchewan and in Treaty 4 in particular when it comes to hydro? Is there does that give people chills there as well, or is that an opportunity people are interested in down the road?
I really don't hear a whole lot about it, and basically we don't have a lot of rivers or water sources that would be large enough to generate power.
So
I know.
It's not really on the list, right?
Right. Yeah, especially in Treaty 4. I would think, maybe in the northern area it might be, but
yeah, no, it's good. It's good to get these regional differentiation and understand the different potential. And I know Saskatchewan has the best solar potential in Canada. We like to say Alberta is just only second to Saskatchewan. So so it makes sense in my mind as well. When I've seen the solar maps of Canada, your Saskatchewan's in bright yellow. So imagine you in the middle of that. So